Well, good evening, and welcome to another segment of California Haunts Radio. I'm Charlotte. I'm with the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team here in Northern California, and we have a great guest on tonight, Mr. David Harvey, who's a terrific paranormal researcher, and he's here to talk about some of his cases and some of the stuff that he does. How you doing, David?
Hey, pretty good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Good, good. I'm on Skype, so sometimes it works, sometimes it gets a little funny. So I just wanted to ask.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I come to this, as most people, with, experiences happening when I was a young child, and scared the bejesus out of me. And then from then on, off and on through the years, I've lived when I lived on the East Coast, I lived in older houses and would always have some sort of activity going on. So I always wondered about it, and but didn't really pursue it at that time. And then I like millions and zillions of people after I saw the Ghost Hunter show and saw that you could actually capture evidence on audio, and that there was a way of sort of interacting and documenting these things, so they just weren't stories. I really grew interested, and so I started pursuing it about 4 years ago.
Terrific. I think a lot of us started that way. I remember myself watching. I'll date myself as far as age goes, watching shows like In Search of and Unsolved Mysteries. I understand. You're not only a researcher. I know you're a researcher, but you do different things in research. Some people concentrate on one faction of that research. They'll concentrate on EVP work, or photography or whatever. But I understand you do different things. What would those things be?
Well, when I got involved in it, again, after I moved to Los Angeles in 2004, I found a meetup group, went to it. Met a couple of characters, Luis Gonzalez and Tom Durant, to name two, and they sort of took me under their wing, and they said, because most of the people there just wanted to sit and watch the Ghost Hunter shows and I guess do the Mystery Theater 3000 thing, and there were just a small group of us that really wanted to go out and get into it and explore it. Also, my friends Layla and Grant of Los Angeles Paranormal, they were there too. That's where I met them, and so I got started, and then Tom Durant called me and said that Pasadena Paranormal was looking for a historian, and I have a long history, all puns intended, of many years of working in museums and doing historical research in various aspects, and so I was sort of tailor-made. The one thing that sort of interested me about all this is that almost everybody will claim, well, there's an Indian burial ground. There were never that many Native American burial grounds. It's not under every house, under every building. So I thought I could bring some solid research skills to the investigations that we did. So I started with them and turned up some great research on many of the cases we did. And then after a while with them, decided to sort of go independent. And so that's what I do now. I'll work with different teams and different sites, but these days mostly doing residential investigations helping families. So it's sort of I've sort of progressed along the steps of moving from, the historic site investigation or the creepy old hospital, the old jail, that kind of thing, to moving to really it's a very different kind of research and investigation and work you do when there's somebody who's really suffering very serious activity and they require some assistance to understand it and hopefully to get their homes back.
What's been one of the most interesting cases or heart-touching cases that you've worked on?
Gosh, there are a number. I would say we've worked some cases where, because in working with Tom, we tend to do the more aggressive cases and we get a lot of referrals from teams that go in, they do sort of initial investigation and they run into things that are just too heavy for them to handle, or they can document what's going on, but they don't know how to take it to the next step to sort of clear it out. And I hate to say it, but SAGE doesn't clear up everything. The way we like to approach it is that, number one, you have to get get an in-depth history from your clients, literally understand where they're coming from, whether they had experiences, what were their first experiences, when did the activity start in the home, did any sort of life event happen around that, like somebody passing or some other event, or having a teenage child. If objects are moving, then you can look towards that as the possible source of the poltergeist activity. But especially cases where kids are being attacked or people are being physically harmed. We had one case with 3 young women. One of them, when she was 9 months pregnant, got thrown down a flight of stairs. The same girl had a hot iron thrown on her foot that burned her, and a glass broke that sent her to the hospital. Those kind of cases we get into right away to figure out what's going on and why it's going on. And the other thing you've got to look at is if you can identify through the evidence the nature of the entity, whether it's human or non-human, and where it's coming from. Because obviously not everything is a demon. That's a very specific type of case. But there are all sorts of other entities out there that can cause trouble. And so you need to get some solid evidence to sort of understand that. Some of the evidence is gotten through EVP, some of it through more intuitive means or psychic means. And it's great because in most of our cases, the one, validates the other. So we'll get something with using a pendulum or having a psychic impression, and then the EVP backs it up. Obviously, if something responds to Latin, it's more towards the regular kind of Christian-based entity problem. If something is responding in Native American or another language, then that gives you a solid clue. But sage is a very specific thing used by Native Americans. So if you're not from that tradition, and it's going to have a limited sort of impact. And the same goes with the use of holy water or other things that teams may try to bring to solve issues.
Interesting, because that was my question. How you, as an investigator or an investigative team, to figure out what you're dealing with exactly, whether it is demonic, and how many demons, really, demonic forces, in the time you've been doing this, have you come in contact with?
A few, but you have to be able to discern. And I highly recommend John Zaffis's website because he gives all the sort of signs. He lists them in terms of the kind of things you look for that might indicate that you have a demonic entity at hand. Many of the things we run into are human entities who frankly want attention, and people, they get oversaturated in the media of scary stuff. And so as soon as they hear a bump in the wall or they hear or they see a shadow, they suddenly think, oh my gosh, it's evil. Well, it's not. It may be your Uncle Charles coming back to say hi. So, a lot of this that we do is educating the client about what's going on, that not necessarily everything that's unexplained is a problem. We also do the traditional technical investigation. So we'll go around with an EF meter, look for spikes, we'll run the audio. We don't do that much visual stuff. Occasionally we do, but I personally am more of a skeptic with visual phenomenon because of my background in doing photography for over 30 years. There are many things that can get between a lens and a subject that can cause a little bright glowing spot, whether it's dust, moisture, or smoke in the air, or a snowflake, or a hair, or a bug. So I tend to discount that. It could be, but who knows? But the visual stuff, the audio is a lot harder to sort of disclaim, I think. So I tend to lean towards the audio as a secure evidence base for us to look at.
We tend to also, we have a no-word policy in our group as well. Because, like you say, you never know what that is. Just, like one of my favorite tricks is to go into somebody's house and it's immaculate, and they'll tell you, well, there's no dust here. One of my favorite tricks, because we do run a video system, is to say, okay, and I'll walk across the carpet and drag my feet. Just to show them, how much dust is actually in the house. And then,
or pet the dog. And
yeah. A lot of
but there are cases where we obviously have reasonable explanations for things going on, and sometimes there are spots where the client will on the little tour of the home will point out, well, here I feel like my hair is being pulled, I feel like someone's watching me, and they're standing under a fluorescent light in the garage where the dishwasher, where the laundry stuff is, and of course you have high EMF readings, so you can kind of say, well, if it seems to be localized in this spot, more than likely your feelings are being caused by this. Now, if I'm in the same spot when we're doing our EVP work and we get whispered voices coming in, then that EMF could also be a source of energy for that entity, for that spirit. So, it goes both ways. But you basically want to do what every good investigator does, which is to survey the entire location inside and out, check for sources of noise, check for ventilation ducts, old water pipes, the electrical system. In one investigation where there was serious activity, we actually found the wiring was bad, and we found one place where the EMF meter went off the scale by a light switch, and we basically told them they need to get an electrician in and check the grounding, because that could, due diligence sometimes turns up things that points to even more serious problems than just the thing that's scaring them.
Absolutely, absolutely. You sent me some EVPs. I'm excited to listen to these things. I haven't had a chance to listen. I've been kind of busy with family stuff. But what do you do during your EVP sessions? What type of equipment do you guys use?
Well, I do pretty much most of the audio for our cases. We take several different approaches. I've found in my experience that I use a Zoom H2 portable digital recorder. I hold it in my hand. I always usually kick it on as we're walking up to the front door, because you would be surprised how much you get as soon as you walk in the residence. Everything from the great get out to I know him to come in, various responses. And then when we sit down, the first thing we do is we sit down and we interview the clients. Everybody who lives in the home we like to talk to just often things will turn up in that interview that we don't get in our 12-page questionnaire. And often they forget things like, so-and-so messed with a Ouija board when we were 12, and something big and black came out and grabbed, things like that people forget to tell you, but it does come up. But while we're doing the interview, often EVPs will come in. I think spirits like to comment on what people are talking about. One of my favorite sayings is that we are their reality TV. So they seem to be more interactive and more entertained when we're talking to each other than when we start doing direct questioning. Of course, that doesn't always hold true, but I get an awful lot of evidence within the first 5 minutes walking in the door. So I let my Zoom run. I don't stop it and start it unless I have to change batteries. I will walk away with 4 to 5 to 6 hours of audio to go through on each case. And then during the investigation, we'll do what we call dedicated EVP sessions where Tom or somebody else will pull out their digital recorder and we'll do question and answer, and then we'll do playback after about 5 minutes. The famous method made famous by Mark and Debbie Constantino, who are also good friends. And that way you can get an immediate read on who's around and what they're saying, and if they're growling or if they're yelling "get out" or if they're friendly and just trying to get a message across. So we get information during the investigation that way. And often, I'm running my recorder at the same time. Often we get different things happening between the two recorders. So that's always kind of interesting.
So then you take it back. You get only 6 hours of evidence, like you say. What software are you using? Are you using Adobe software, or are you using the other stuff?
I'll use Audacity.
Okay.
It's free, and it so far I've had good luck with it. I've tried the Adobe Audition, and it's sort of a memory hog, and it has way more features than what I need for what I do. So when I play it back, I usually boost the gain.
Okay.
Then I listen to it, and then when I think I hear something, I isolate it, make a little clip, drop it into a new file, and then play it back again. And if I think it's pretty clear, I'll leave it alone. If it is something that I think I can't quite make out the words, then I've sort of, in the past year, become pretty expert at doing what's called noise removal, which is where you can find a little sample, and it has to be by the room. So when you change areas in a location, you need to resample in your audio. But basically, if we're in the front hall and I think I hear something, I'll find a little dead spot where nobody's talking, where there's just ambient background, and I block that in. I click basically the get the sample just from that little 1 or 2 second patch, and then I apply that to the clip, and that often will make it clearer. I found that was very helpful with my audio from Alcatraz, where Alcatraz is all hard surface, so it's very echoey location, full of reinforced concrete, hard ceramic tile, steel, and of course the foghorn and the birds outside. And by doing that sort of noise removal, it actually brought out a lot of the EVPs that I got from that location. Other locations, it doesn't make a difference. And, you know, you always worry about creating artifacts by doing too much filtering. So that's the extent of it that I do on the audio. And I've gotten very good results. When I first started, I didn't get a lot. And now, depending on the location when I go in, I can get up to 50 or 60 EVPs within an hour. A lot of those will be just short little things like, yes, or saying somebody. I usually get my name, so hey, yeah.
Wow.
But I have some that go on. They're complete sentences.
So what is this recording device you use? Can you spell it out for everybody?
No, the Zoom H2, a lot of people use it for investigations. It's been out, I guess, 4 or 5 years now.
Okay. Yeah.
The H2, yeah. And I record in stereo. Yeah, some people use the surround sound part of it, but I like the stereo. And I've gotten some pretty remarkable recordings from it. It's very crisp, but I have a colleague, Rob Woldarski, who uses an old-fashioned cassette recorder with a mechanical movement and cassette tape, and he gets amazing EVPs too. So, you know, I don't know that the device is, you know, and the other thing, you know, because I have a more sort of, well, not only historical research, but my career moved into art and museum conservation, which is basically applied science, using scientific methods and tested material to keep art and objects, historic objects, from deteriorating. And so with that background, I've used a lot of devices used in the field. I've used IR cameras, I've used FTIR, I've used X-rays, and all of that. And so I bring that to the investigation with that background. And so, you know, it always makes it always interesting because I think there's a lot of bit of operator influence in terms of what you get. You know, some people tend to get a lot of EVPs, other people don't. And I think that some people are more sort of tuned in that way. And it's kind of one of the